Hello, my dear students. Welcome to the next class of Appreciating Prose. So, in the last class, I gave you an introduction about Pico Iyer, and today we are going into the text in praise of the humble comma. So, this is a text where he is making us remember that how important comma is. It is connected with our emotions, it is connected with the society, and he is also going to give us different functions of the comma. So in the first paragraph, he is going to compare God with the comma. What a comparison is that? Comparing gods with the comma. So in the first sentence, he starts the essay with the first sentence like this: the gods, they say, give breath and they take it away.
Then the Lord God formed a man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and the man became a living being. Verses from Bible. And the humble comma also gives you a space to breathe, also gives you a space to think. Add it to the present clause. When you add comma to the present clause or to a part of a sentence, like for example, when it rained, add it to a present clause, and of a sudden the mind is quite literally given pause to think. Then we stop for a moment when we see a comma and we take a breath and we continue with the sentence, isn't it? And take it out if you wish, or forget it. And if you forget to put the comma there, and if you are not using it, the mind is deprived of a resting place. Mind doesn't get time to pause, time to think. Yet still comma gets no respect. It does such a great job. Still the comma or the punctuation marks are not taken care by anybody, not aware. People just ignore the importance of punctuations, and maybe nobody has thought before the importance of punctuations, how important it is in our sentences. He raises this idea, the importance of comma and the punctuations.
We can see that it is the time we often use WhatsApp messages, everything going through online. But when instant messaging, when we do that, we often neglect all these grammatical functions, and we often use all the short forms as soon as possible, ASAP, and take care, TZ, and what else? Profile, display picture, DP, everything has come in a shortened form, and we people or students, people, of course we can say, people neglect their grammatical functions, and they just want to communicate messages, just want to send messages instantly, and people do not wait to give grammatical correctness to the sentences. And still, but you have to remember that how important to use grammatical things when we write in a sentence. Actually, for students, as far as students are concerned, this is going to affect your answer sheets. When you write your answers, maybe you'll forget to write YOU for you, and you just put you there. No, so you have to, when at least when you send messages to your friends, lessen the use of these shortened forms, and increase use of increase use of the correct way of language. Yes, comma seems just a slip of a thing, a pedant's tick, a blip on the edge of our consciousness, a kind of printer's smudge almost. And comma, what it seems to others, that it is just a tick of a perfectionist. Only a perfectionist do that. It's just a tick of a perfectionist, and it is like a blip on the edge of our consciousness, just a deviation from our consciousness, or a kind of printer's mistake in a piece of paper. That's it. We almost see this comma. Small we claim as beautiful in the age of the microchip. small things are beautiful. In nowadays, everything is getting in a shortened versions. Yet, what is so often used and rarely recalled as the comma, unless it be breath itself, and still we often used it, and but we rarely think about its importance. It is a breath itself, but we rarely think about the importance of comma in our life. Speaks Pico. Isn't it interesting? He is allowing us to think on the importance of comma here, how important the comma is in our writings, and how the comma is connected with our life. And in the next paragraph, he's going to start with the functions of the comma. He's starting with punctuation, one is taught, has a point to keep up law and order. Punctuations keep law and order in a society, or we can say punctuations keep things order in a sentence. We can also speak in that way. Punctuation marks are the road signs placed along the highway of a communication. He is using another analogy here, and he is comparing road signs with comma. Punctuation marks are the road signs placed along the highway of a communication. In the communication, where also you have to follow some orders, from orders some or have to follow some laws, as in a traffic, as in a road, you have to follow certain rules in the communication also. That is to control speed in a traffic, that you need to when you are driving, what all things you have to look for. You have to look for red light in a traffic signal. You have to obey the red light, yellow light, and green light. Same way, he's also uh, he's also comparing the functions of the punctuations to the traffic lights. To control speed, provide directions, and prevent head-on collisions, we are using traffic signals. Same way, we are also using punctuations in our communication to control our speed of our language, to give directions to the person, that when you have to stop, when you have to go ahead, like that. A period has the unblinking finality of a red light. The full stop period has the unblinking finality of a red light. Red light asks you to stop. Same way, a full stop. And what comma does? Comma asks us to slow down in the process of communication. That to slow down. And what do semicolons ask you to do? Semicolons is a stop sign that tells us to ease gradually to a halt. You have to stop there before gradually starting up again. But it is not complete, you have to start up again. That is what the function of semicolon. So these comma or semicolon or a period or a full stop, these things have the functions of the traffic light also. How the traffic light gives order to in the road, or have to follow traffic lines in order to prevent, in order to keep the law and order, in order to keep the law and order of the road. Same way, punctuation marks also helps us to keep the law and order in the communication. Then, by establishing, now he is going to give us a really different perspective of the comma. By establishing the relations between words, punctuation establishes the relations between the people using words. Punctuations establishes the relations between words, and also they establish relations between the people using words, and he is giving us the examples below. That may be one reason why school teachers exalt it and lovers defy it. School teachers are always associated with the textbook. The teachers are always associated with the textbook. So to establish the relation between words, school teachers love it. School teachers are always associated with the textbook, and they give more importance to the punctuations, grammar, and all. and they exalt the use of comma, and the lovers defy it. Lovers won't use, lovers actually go against the comma because they think this comma itself separates them. In between the words, comma separates them, so they don't want to, they defy it, they never use it. And he is giving as another example here that Gary Gilmore wrote a letter, Gary Gilmore's words to his girlfriend. Gary Gilmore was an American criminal, and he is famous for his who gained international attention implementation of the death sentence for 2 murders. And Gary Gilmore, he wrote to his girlfriend without any comma in between. We love each other and belong to each other. Let's don't ever hurt each other, Nicole. Let's don't ever hurt each other. There is no comma in between. He says that H.W. Fowler, he was a famous lexicographer, schoolmaster, and commentator on the usage of English language. This H.W. Fowler, he says that maybe the Gary Gilmore have known that it separates, comma separates the inseparables, the lovers, comma separates inseparables. Maybe that's why he has not used comma in between the words he want to speak to his girlfriend Nicole. I'll read once again. We love each other and belong to each other. Let's don't ever hurt each other, Nicole. Let's don't ever hurt each other. It shows their togetherness. It shows they're inseparable. Through the words also they don't want to separate. They feel that this comma itself separates them, so they don't want to use it. Isn't it connected with the human emotions? Yes, it is connected. So in the next paragraph he is giving another functions of the comma. Another function of comma is that it's like a pillar that holds society upright. Punctuation then is a civic prop, a support. Civic associated with people. Civic prop, a pillar that holds society upright. What a great function it has. And he is giving us another example. The day-to-day examples he is providing, not something very much complicated, but he is providing us day-to-day simple examples that we can easily associate. A run-on sentence, that means a sentence without any break or pause, similar to that we have seen just now, we love each other, similar to that. A run-on sentence, its phrases piling up without any divisions in between, is as unsightly as a sink piled high with dirty dishes. We know how a sink is piled up with dirty dishes at times. No, yes, and it is like a run-on sentence is like a sink. He's comparing a run-on sentence with a sink here. The same nastiness we feel, same disgust we feel with the run-on sentence also. It seems to be a disgust. Small wonder then that punctuation was one of the first proprieties of the Victorian age, the age of the corset, that the modernist threw off. Small wonder then that punctuation was one of the first proprieties or decorum of the Victorian age. Victorian age was an age which gave importance to decorum, importance to morality, it gave importance to order, ideal beauty. It was the age of religiousness in the society. People need to follow certain rules and regulations in the society at the time, so their writings were also like that. Punctuation was one of the proprieties of the Victorian age. Punctuations, grammatically people were organized, people were using in the rights of the author, in the writings of the authors also, they used the correct way of language. And the age of the corset, Victorian era was also the age of corset, that you can see in the picture. Corset, women wore corsets to shape their bodies to a more civilized ideal form. They used corsets, that is it was the age of corset also, that the modernists threw off. But the modernism, when it came, they just threw off this order, they just threw off this punctuations, or grammar we can say, and they just threw off this corsets also. And you will give you an example. After the in 1920s, it was the time Virginia Woolf and James Joyce, they were specifying on a stream of consciousness technique, that they were writing something, writing a work in using stream of consciousness, that they just go on writing about the feelings or the words that come through their mind, about the private thoughts without any punctuation marks. It is really difficult to understand the meaning. And he is giving another example here, is that he is giving us the example of James Joyce Molly Bloom. James Joyce was an Irish writer, Irish novelist, a short story writer, a teacher, a literary critic, and he was associated with modernist movement, and he is regarded as one of the most influential writers of the 20th century. And his famous work is that Ulysses, and it has a chapter called Molly Bloom's Soliloquy, where she is giving an long and unpunctuated thoughts soliloquy, that is associated with stream of consciousness technique. And the passage comprises her thoughts, and this thoughts, he's saying that private thoughts in 36 pages, almost unperioded and officially censored prose. It is 36 pages without any punctuations. It is just give her private thoughts, and it is really confusing. And Pico Iyer says, earlier said that a run-on sentence is unsightly as a pink sink piled high with high dishes. Pico Iyer indirectly says that it is like that only. Then, and another rebellion was surely marked when E. Cummings first felt free to commit God to the lower case. And Cummings is another famous writer. He was associated with modernist free form of poetry, and in his works, he has his own ways of writing style, and he used lowercase spellings for poetic expressions. He even used Cummings, the initials in small letters, and the C also in the small letters. And for God also he gave, for G he also wrote in the small letter. For writing about God, we actually use H in capital letters and G also in capital letters. Actually, he denied to use it. He used G in the lower case for God. And so, in this paragraph, we have seen that it holds the society upright. It was also the reflection of the society. Also, see, James Joyce's time, it was after the First World War, and people were losing hope in the religion, and it was all after it was after the fractures of the First World War, and so this societal spirit also reflected in their writings. That's what we can see here. James Joyce time, modernist time, was they were throwing away all the conventions, and they felt a freedom to write whatever they wanted to write, and they just spilled out their private thoughts, spilled out their confusions, spilled out their attitudes, spilled out their thoughts, emotions, everything into the text. And it was like a run-on sentence. And Pico says run-on sentence is like a sink piled up with dirty dishes. And now we are moving into uh, next paragraph. Yes, and also remember that punctuations, a life without punctuations would be chaotic, would be completely confusion. So we know in the 20th century it was a time of fragmentation. People lost their faith in God, fragmented identities. Millions of people lost their lives, and the bombing of Hiroshima, Nagasaki, and the two greatest world wars, and people lost their lives. Vietnam War, Civil War, and it was not a pleasant time. People there, life was so chaotic, and the writings can also be seen as chaotic. And he says that life without punctuation would be chaotic. And to give this idea, he gives connection with the Victorian age of the strict rules. To use the writings were also ordered. And he also gives us the example of modernist who gets rid of all these conventions and order in the society. And punctuation thus becomes the signatures of cultures. It is a signature of culture also. The hot blooded Spaniard seems to be revealed in the passion and urgency of his doubled exclamation points and question marks. And he is going to give us examples of two different cultures also. He is a traveler, don't forget that. So he has gone to different places, he has stayed there, and he studied about different cultures in an outsider's perspective, and he observed the cultures. Then he is writing about these things. So he says that Spaniards are so impassioned, so they are very much impassioned, and maybe or amorous, cannot be said, but very much impassioned. And they reveal their passion and urgency through their writings also. They use double exclamation points and question marks in their writings to display their passion and urgency. Caramba quinzabe. Caramba is a form to denote surprise, and quinzabe, like it's an expression, who knows, like that in Spain. And they use double exclamation points and question marks frequently that denotes their passion and urgency. That is why he says that it also signifies the cultures. And he is also giving us another example to how the punctuation has the function to display the culture. He's giving us the example of China. The impassive Chinese traditionally added to his so-called inscrutability by omitting directions from his ideograms. Unexpressive Chinese people, unexpressive or emotionless, that what he says. Okay, it is his work, that's what he says. Impassive Chinese traditionally added to his so-called inscrutability. Chinese letters, we often find it is very much difficult because they use ideograms. Ideograms are, we can say, the character itself symbolize the idea of a thing, and each character displays some ideas. That is what ideograms. And Chinese language is like this. And he says that it is very much obscure, it is very much difficult to understand, and they omit their directions, omit their punctuations. And so their culture is also revealed, the emotionless, the inexpressive culture, or very difficult to understand nature of these people also revealed through punctuations. That is, they omit it. So they omit the punctuations, so we get the idea that they are very much difficult to understand people. They are inexpressive of their emotions, so we may not be able to identify what sort of person he or she is. Anarchy and commotion of the 60s were given voice in the exploding exclamation marks. So 60s time was in America. It was the civil war, time of civil war. It was also the time of Vietnam War, and Cuban Missile Crisis was during that time. And it was really a period of unrest for that time, and their anarchy or commotion or confusion were also was also shown in the writings with the exploding exclamation marks or write as capital letters. See, capital letters when we use to indicate, um, it also indicates our emotion. For example, if you write, if you're messaging to some person, and if you use no in capital letters, it is like we are shouting at that person. No, it conveys one meaning. No, it conveys a different meaning. It likes you're shouting at that person, you are very adamant in that no, you're very stubborn in that no, that it shows that. No. And they use 60s writers, they use capital letters. And here he is giving also another example of a writer, Tom Wolfe, the American writer. And this Tom Wolfe was an American novelist. His works were crammed with references to surface appearances, clothing styles, and even commercial brand names. He has used commercial brand names. Day Glow in his works. Day Glow actually is an American privately held manufacturer, paint manufacturer, and he is also has written a work called Painted Word, the book of art criticism. So his use of exclamation marks, write as capital letters, that shows the attitude of the 60s.
In the communist societies, we can say in the Soviet Union, where the state is absolute, the state has the power, where individual stands below the state, and the capital letters are only used by the ministries, subcommittees, and the secretaries. That means the people in power, they only use the capital letters, and the common people are advised to use the small letters. So, thus, usage of capital letters and even small letters is associated with the culture of the society.
So, children, I'm stopping here, and we will continue with the essay in our next class. Thank you.